healthcare reform and comparisons to Nazi Germany. Joining us for a political timeout, former Bush speechwriter David Frum, Clarence Page of the Chicago Tribune, and CNN senior congressional correspondent Dana Bash. But first, let's go to CNN national political correspondent Jessica Yellen. Jessica?
Suzanne, have you noticed all the talk about Hitler and healthcare reform lately? Every so often, someone compares the reform plans to Hitler's extermination policies or brands President Obama or his political allies as Nazis. This image right here popped up outside a town hall meeting, and that's a Lyndon LaRouche protester from the far left making that comparison. A swastika was also painted on Congressman David Scott's office sign after he argued with a doctor at a town hall meeting. Well, finally, at a town hall yesterday, Congressman Barney Frank lashed out at a woman. She was speaking to him while holding a poster that showed President Obama's face defaced with a Hitler mustache. Let's listen.
Why do you continue to support a Nazi policy, as Obama has expressly supported this policy? Why are you supporting it?
When you ask me that question, I am going to revert to my ethnic heritage and ask you your question with a question. On what planet do you spend most of your time?
Now, that woman is not alone. This Israeli man seemed to be near tears when a woman threw out Hitler's name as he was being interviewed.
Here, we just talk, but we don't respect them. The guys... Did you hear this? She say to a Jew, Heil Hitler. Here? I'm a Jew. You telling me Heil Hitler? Shame of you. Shame of you.
Well, look, it should go without saying that there is just no legitimate basis for any comparison between a despotic murderer and an elected U.S. president campaigning for legislation. But the question here is this just overheated rhetoric as usual, or has a new line been crossed? Suzanne?
Thanks. That's an excellent question. We'll start with you, David.
Well, I direct viewers, there's a very funny website called ObamaIsLiterallyHitler.com, which points out they both had dogs, they both often wore funny pants, and they both had beer summits. So obviously they have a lot in common. Now, it is obviously a foolish and destructive way to talk, and doesn't have any place in American parlance. And I just wonder whether the problem isn't that Americans don't have enough references to other bad regimes. It's like Steven Spielberg. You need a villain, get a Nazi. And people would say, why, this is just like Clement Attlee in Britain or Tommy Douglas in Saskatchewan. I don't know if it would have the same purchase.
Clarence, is it just ignorance on the part of people who are going there, or is this something that politicians should address?
The short answer is yes. To that. The longer answer is, one of the things David and I agree on is that Hitler analogies should not be made to anybody but Hitler. I mean, it's ridiculous from the left and the right this happens. Lyndon LaRouche, who was behind this particular campaign, I've been covering him for several decades now, Suzanne, and this is the biggest publicity he's gotten because these town halls, it's one of those quirky things, where these town halls are attracting cameras to anybody who makes a fuss of any kind. The people who come and peacefully ask questions and have civil discussion don't get covered. But the nuttier you are, the more coverage you get, and now he's getting this tremendous amount of coverage just by yelling Hitler. And it's rather appalling.
That's right. And we've all seen, I mean, you covered Lyndon LaRouche for a couple more years.
Thank you.
Than I have. But we've seen him and his supporters certainly on the campaign trail. And look, the bottom line is the fact that we're talking about him and the fact that we're talking about what his followers are doing to disrupt these town halls, maybe encouraging them, because the reality is that there are people who are allowed, but many of the people who are allowed at these town halls do have legitimate questions about fundamental policy questions that have to do with their lives with regard to health care. These people, that's not what they're talking about.
Does it help or hurt in making those points? If you're against any kind of reform, health care reform, does that hurt their movement when you have people from both sides of the extremes doing this?
Well, look, if you're trying to oppose the president and then you have a lot of lunatics showing up and saying, yeah, you agree with me, that's not helpful. I mean, there are so many points that need to be raised about what is wrong with the Democratic plan. It is going to be expensive. It doesn't have proper cost controls. This public option will crowd out the private insurance that Americans rely on. These are serious points, and these are unserious points.
Right. It's really rather sad, but the Obama administration was caught off guard by this series of events. They were hoping to have some kind of finished legislation that they could seriously debate for August. They don't. They have a lot of rather vague ideas right now as the sausage-making process is still happening on Capitol Hill. And meanwhile, anybody who just yells no gets a lot of attention.
Dan, I'm going to ask you to stand by. We're going to ask a different question. Top NASCAR drivers make a pit stop at the White House. Can President Obama help them find some new fans? And wet kisses from a pit bull.